Good evening and welcome to this evening's Committee of Adjustment meeting. It is Thursday, March the 20th, 2025, 6:45, and I will call this meeting to order. Remind members of any disclosures of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Seeing none noted. We have minutes from the previous Committee of Adjustment meeting held February the 6th, 2025. I hope everyone's had an opportunity to peruse them. If there are no errors or omissions, I need a mover and seconder for the following: that the minutes from the Committee of Adjustment meeting held February the 6th, 2025 be approved as presented. Deputy Mayor, excuse me, that would be Committee Member Weisler and Committee Member Emerson will second. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. This evening, we're dealing with two minor variance applications. The first one is minor variance application COA 0425 Hebert at 9215 and 9217 Allward Street. Purpose of this variance is to permit a maximum lot area of 680.3 square meters for the proposed retained lot, parcel B, whereas section 10.3 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum lot area of 695 square meters for lots with semi-detached dwelling units where no public water or sanitary servicing is available. The subject lands are located at 9215 and 9217 Allward Street, south side, south of Heritage line in the village of Stratford. The effect of this variance is to permit a reduced minimum lot area of 680.3 square meters for the proposed retained lot, parcel B, in order to clear the consent conditions for approval of Elgin Land Division Committee, file number E525, that was conditionally approved on January the 22nd, 2025. One unit of the existing semi-detached dwelling will remain on the proposed retained lot and one unit on the proposed severed lot. At this point, we will have the staff presentation. We report DS 1325 by Margaret Underhill, Secretary Treasurer, regarding the minor variance application COA 0425. Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the committee. The report before you is submitted as a minor variance application to satisfy a condition of a consent, as already stated by the chair. The staff report before you notes that the planner's memorandum dated December the 11th, 2024 was presented and considered on December the 19th, 2024 for the severance application. Given that the subject property is located in the village of Stratfordville, where only municipal sanitary services are available, the minimum lot area is 695 square meters. And the proposed is 680.3 meters, so it is deficient. The municipal conditions included the owner obtain approval of the minor variance application to permit the minimum lot area. Planner and staff, we concur that the application meets and satisfies the 4 tests of the Planning Act for a minor variance of the zoning bylaw and satisfies the criteria to grant relief from the zoning bylaw section 10.3 minimum lot area to permit the division of a semi-detached dwelling into 2 separate dwelling units. And it's before you for any questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mark. Is the applicant present and wish to make a presentation this evening?
This applicant is not present this evening.
Thank you. Are there any public submissions?
There are none.
Thank you. Open it up to the committee for questions and discussion. Does anyone have any concerns or questions regarding this application? Right, seeing none, we have a proposed motion before us that reads that the Committee of Adjustment Secretary Treasurer's Report DS 1325 regarding the Hebert minor variance be received, and that the Committee of Adjustment considered all written and oral submissions received on this application, the effect of which helped the committee to make an informed decision. And whereas the committee agrees that the proposed variance as presented meets section 45(1)(1) of the Planning Act and is considered minor. Therefore, application COA 0425 submitted by Peter and Agatha Hebert pursuant to section 45 of the Planning Act for a minor variance is granted to allow relief from the municipality of Bayham zoning bylaw number Z 456, 2003 regulations to clear the consent condition of approval for Elgin Land Division Committee, file number E-25, conditionally approved on January the 22nd, 2025, as follows. Section 10.3, minimum lot area to permit a lot area of 680.3 square meters on the retained parcel, whereas 695 square meters is the required for a semi-detached dwelling with a municipal sanitary sewage disposal service and no public water supply. We have a mover and seconder for that. I saw committee member Emerson and committee member Chilcott, all in favor of that. That is carried. Thank you. Moving on with the second application is minor variance application COA 0525 by Dreger, Ebert, and Schmidt at 9311 Richmond Road. Purpose of this variance is to grant relief from the following zoning bylaw regulations for the conversion of an existing shop building to a single detached dwelling on the subject property located at 9311 Richmond Road, west side, south of Heritage Line in the hamlet of Richmond. Section 9.7 to permit a maximum floor area for accessory use of 170 square meters, whereas 75 square meters is required. And section 9.8 to permit a front yard depth of 6.1 meters, whereas 7 meters is required. The effect of this variance is to permit an existing building to be converted into a single detached dwelling that is permitted in the hamlet residential zone. At this point, we will have the staff presentation. That's report DS 1425 by Margaret Underhill, Secretary Treasurer, regarding minor variance application COA 0525. Mark, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the committee. The purpose of the variance and the effect of the variance was already stated. So this is a case of a new owner has taken ownership of the property, and there are two buildings on the property, formerly both workshops. So they are looking to convert the front building to a residence. So in order to do that, they have to comply with the regulations for a residential use on that property. So the Committee of Adjustment, you must be satisfied with the 4 tests. The planner's memorandum is dated March the 13th, 2025, is attached, and it provides the full analysis of the 4 tests and the variances required for the compliance. Again, the owners are planning to convert the workshop to a residential use, and therefore the building must comply with the zoning regulations for hamlet residential use. The municipal planner and staff concur the application meets the criteria to grant relief from section 9.7, maximum floor area, and 9.8, which is the minimum front yard depth, in order to recognize the existing deficient depth of 6.1 meters and the oversized workshop in the rear. And I leave it with you for any questions.
Thank you very much for that, Mark. Again, for this application, is anyone present from the applicant or an agent point of view to make a presentation? Please step forward. Do they have to sign in, Mark?
I'm good with everything that was said.
Perfect.
That was well said.
Excellent. To the point.
All right. Are there any public submissions, Mark?
There are no public submissions.
Okay, any questions from the committee? Any concerns? Seeing none, we have a motion before us that reads that the Committee of Adjustment Secretary Treasurer's Report DS 1425 regarding the Dreger, Hebert, Schmidt minor variance be received, and that the Committee of Adjustment considered all written and oral submissions received on this application, the effect of which helped the committee to make an informed decision. And whereas the committee agrees that the proposed variance as presented meets section 45.1.1 of the Planning Act and is considered minor. Therefore, application COA 0525 submitted by Peter Dreger, Anna Schmidt, Peter Hebert, and Elena Hebert pursuant to section 45 of the Planning Act for a minor variance is granted to allow relief from the municipality of Bayham zoning bylaw Z 456/2003 regulations to permit an existing building to be converted into a single detached dwelling and recognize the existing oversized rear workshop as follows. Section 9.7. Maximum floor area for an accessory building to permit the existing 170 square meter rear workshop, whereas 75 square meters is required. And section 9.8, minimum front yard depth to recognize the existing 6.1 meters front yard depth that facilitates the conversion of the workshop to a residential use. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? I see committee member Emerson and committee member Froze, all in favor. That is carried. Brings us to the adjournment motion. That the Committee of Adjustment meeting for consideration of minor variance applications COA 0425 and COA 0525 be adjourned at 6:56 PM. And that in accordance to regulations of the Planning Act, notices of decision be circulated by the Secretary Treasurer accordingly. Mover and seconder, please. Committee member Weiser, committee member Emerson. All in favor? That is carried. We are adjourned.
Wonder if it was like a bike club.
Good evening and welcome to our regular session of council for the municipality of Bayham. It is Thursday, March the 20th, 2025, 7 p.m. and I will call this meeting to order. Remind members of any disclosures of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Seeing none noted. I see we have no items not listed on the agenda or announcements.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. No new items.
Any announcements for this evening? Pretty quiet in Bayham. Okay. Brings us down to section 7, adoption of minutes of previous meetings. And that includes the regular meeting of council held March the 6th, 2025, and the statutory planning meeting held March the 6th of 2025. Everyone's had opportunity to peruse those minutes. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none noted, then I will entertain a mover and seconder for the following, that the minutes from the regular meeting of council held March the 6th, 2025, and the minutes from the statutory planning meeting held March the 6th, 2025 be approved as presented. Mover and seconder, Councilor Emerson, Deputy Mayor Weisler. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Skipping down to section 7 or 11, excuse me, physical services and emergency services, 11.2 reports to council. Item A, report BL 0325 by Mark Russell, bylaw enforcement officer, regarding the 2024 bylaw enforcement annual report. Good evening, Mark.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you, you have the 2024 bylaw summary report. The first half of 2024 bylaw had staff turnover. So in summer, we had staff turnover and I started in August. Of the 164 complaints, 83% of them were resolved within 5 days. A majority of the complaints were from Vienna, Purple, and Ward 1, which accounted for 58% of the complaints. These numbers were followed by Stratfordville and Eden. The closure rate in the last 2 years increased substantially from 50% in 2022 to over 90% in the last 2 years. Bylaw has received over 164 complaints in 2024, which is a slight decrease due to the changes in how complaints were reported over the past. It's important to note that bylaw has had 3 bylaw enforcement officers in the past 3 years, and reporting differs slightly between officers. These numbers don't include the inquiries, which are not recorded by way of complaints, such as emails, phone calls, or general inquiries. Bylaw trends are lot maintenance, zoning complaints continue to be significant portion of bylaw complaints and often take a substantial amount of time and resources to resolve. Off-road vehicle complaints have risen and dog complaints are consistent with the 2023 numbers. Noise complaints over the past 2 years have substantially reduced from 76 in 2022 to 11 in 2024. Wow. So that's a big drop. Parking ticket numbers are consistent with previous years, and parking complaints have been reduced in 2023. Please note that parking enforcement is primarily initiated through complaint, except in the case of overnight parking, public safety, or during the summer months in Purple. So now we're going to go into the response methods regarding complaint calls. For a majority of the calls, bylaw follows the municipal law enforcement policy. The only reason why we wouldn't is if there's a safety issue. Typically in bylaw in Bayham, we're looking for voluntary compliance, and also we do a large component of education here. So we want to inform the ratepayer of the bylaws and provide general education. So our first step is a notice of non-compliance, which is free. If we go back for the reinspection and the work is not 75% completed, then what we'll do is we issue them $150 reinspection cost. The third step is a final notice or an order, which is $200. So if we go back after the second notice has been issued and the work has not been completed, that's where we would do a final notice or an order. For remedial action, basically that's cleaning up the properties. We haven't had to do that in 2024. 2024 has been a successful year with only 12 fines being issued over 6 properties, all which have come into compliance. So obviously the fines do work. That being said, our main goal is compliance. We're not looking at issuing a lot of charges. In addition, no fines were issued of any kind in the last 4 months of the year. Staff have noticed the rates and fees are encouraging property owners to come in compliance without charges needed to be issued. My conclusion is I'm proud to say that 2024 has been a successful year in bylaw by increasing the closure rates on the files, implementing paid parking program, all while maintaining an excellent level of service for Bayham and for Malahide. In 2025, the fire chief will retain the bylaw enforcement officer title in a limited capacity and address burning complaints and assist with bylaw while they're on vacation. The bylaw enforcement officer will be the primary contact for the paid parking pilot program, which is currently onboarding the seasonal bylaw enforcement officer, which will operate from late April to late September. Please note that this position for the seasonal bylaw enforcement officer is not expected to turn into a full-time position and will just be seasonal. At this point, I'm going to pass it back over to the mayor for any questions.
All right, thank you very much for that report, Mark. I have one question, going back to your steps of response methods. What's the timing between typical?
Just ask my question.
Thank you.
Typically, we provide anywhere from 2 weeks to a month, depending on the work. So if there's substantial amount of work required, then we provide a month. If it's just a job like a little bit of garbage in the front porch, then we provide like a week or 2 weeks. But
Right.
most of the compliance dates are 2 weeks.
Okay, so it's scalable depending upon the size.
Yeah, it's all taken into consideration of what's on the property. If it's a little bit of garbage out in the front property, it might be a week. If it's a full cleanup, a lot of issues on a property, would provide a month.
All right.
So our goal is basically to give them enough time to work with them and to gain compliance.
Okay. Now that I stole your thunder, Deputy Mayor, do you have another question? Anyone else? Yep, Council Froze.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question, Mark. The 10 new bylaws that were approved, I think 2 meetings ago, are they the parking bylaws that's mainly for Port Burwell? Are they complaint driven as well? Or are they going to be scouted and tagged that way?
So through your worship, the parking bylaw that was recently passed replaces the previous parking bylaw and will be treated exactly the same as the previous parking bylaw. As I had mentioned in the report, that we're not going out there looking for a ton of issues. We're going to be looking primarily in Port Burwell during the summer. If it's an issue with overnight parking, we're definitely going to be addressing that. Or if it's a safety issue, we will be addressing that. But we're not looking at just hammering everybody around through the whole municipality for no reason. If there's a safety issue or if it's overnight, like I said.
Just to clarify and follow up on that, Mark, the parking bylaw that was approved is for the entire municipality.
That's
not
correct.
Specifically the village of Port Burwell.
That is correct.
Thank you. Any other questions for anybody? Follow up, Councilor Froze?
If I could, I would just argue that, just saying that it was mainly put into place so that we would have more people using the paid parking. That was in the report as well.
Well, the bylaw, or the report and bylaw was a replacement of the existing bylaw, which was Bayham wide. But yes, it does also accommodate for the paid parking pilot on the beach. I agree with you there, Councilor Froze. Any other questions, concerns at this point? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment. Mark, thank you very much for the report. I'm actually really impressed with these numbers. I was really surprised to see from 2022 compared to 2024, how successful it's become with and noticing that really only fines were issued for only 6 properties. I know they were double the fines, but only 6. That's pretty good considering when you're looking at the statistics. So Yeah, congratulations on the report. Well done. And just also noting, you're looking at those statistics as well and those numbers, knowing that we had 6 weeks with no bylaw, which was, so so very, very well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? So. Okay. We had, just referring back to, your comments, Deputy Mayor.
Mm.
In 2436 slot maintenance issues, and I assume that was primarily where those, particular. 6 individuals and
Correct.
12 charges. All right,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
Mm.
Okay. Counselor Froze?
Sorry, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a point, I guess, on approving those bylaws and how those signs were going to be paid for. I guess if nobody complains about parking issues, I guess we're going to have a bit of a money issue with paying for those signs. Just a side point, I guess.
Good point. If I recall the report, it was suggesting that the funding for those particular signs, and those are across the entire municipality, they come to each village. And that they've the reflectivity test is being failed on those signs. They only have a life cycle of what, 10 years, maybe 15? Where's Steve? He's
I don't know.
nodding.
Is it
So 10
I didn't
years.
think it was that long.
But the point is that I think the report was referring to, this was a source of funding to help pay for those signs. And it wasn't simply for Port Burwell. It was for the entire municipality.
Yeah, I get that. If they're failing reflectivity right now, that's a little too convenient, in my opinion.
Well, whichever.
And
Councilor
just the
Emerson.
point to your question, through you, Mr. Mayor, if it's municipality wide, are we loading the electric bike up and driving through Stratfordville and Eden as well? Or is that for exclusive use for rural?
It's a good point. My understanding was it was for the parking issue down in Port Burwell, but you're right.
It's
Port Burwell. Yeah, it's Port Burwell. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. If there is nothing further, then we have a motion that reads that report BL 0325 regarding the 2024 bylaw enforcement annual report be received for information. I have a mover and seconder for that. Got Deputy Mayor Weisler and Councillor Chilcott. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Next up, report FR 0225 by Harry Baronick, Fire Chief, regarding single year procurement, capital item number FD 05, self-contained breathing apparatus replacement. Chief?
Your worship, council. In the past, it's been quite nice because I've been able to say we've received a grant. Or here's how good we've done in the past year.
You're not bringing us a grant tonight? Then
No,
why are you here?
the exact opposite, your worship,
Mhm.
unfortunately. As stated in the background, in November 13th, 2024, a special capital budget meeting. We put into the capital budget a cost replacement for the SCBA's being 210,000 for 25, 210,000 for 26, and 92,000 for 27. However, your worship, the SCBA is probably one of the most critical pieces of protective clothing, that the protective equipment that the firefighter has. Anytime that there's a scene where the air has been compromised, it's the thing that keeps us alive. And our current SCBAs were purchased as a result of the G7 and or in the G20 back in 2010 in Toronto, when they were surplused. Our current stock is, as stated, is 20 SCBAs, approximately 50 bottles, masks for all firefighters, and 2 rapid intervention team packs. The 3 currently out of the 20, there are 3 packs that are down, they have broken, and it's been agreed that at least 2 of the packs should not be fixed because the value of the cost to fix them is extremely high. That's true, possibly going forward to replacing them. The shelf life of these packs is roughly 15 years. The bottles are definitely 15 years, and we cannot take them. We should not take them over that. Many of our masks have been decommissioned, to say the least. They've been scraped. Their elasticity and their straps have gone, and they've been damaged. I can tell you that for our last class of recruits, I had to search high and low for replacement masks. I found 5 for our recruits, and that was because another department was getting rid of their packs. And these were also slightly used and scraped and had some marks on the face, but at least they worked for the purpose that they're being used for. We're at the end of the year of their life shelf. Staff has been in contact with suppliers of SCBA's. We have 3 known suppliers that produce these packs and these bottles. During the conversations the staff has had with them, it's been indicated that there's going to be very quickly 4 to 8% raises in their stock, their cost. And then coming in June 2025, a new standard is going to take place from the NFPA, which will make all SCBA's meet the new standard. I have asked continually for how much this is going to end up costing us. I have not been given an answer, but I have been told that it'll be more electronics and better compatibility with the other packs. We're also in a unknown situation, as we all know, with this global trading tariffs between the United States and Canada, and that will also have effect. The bottles themselves are aluminum bottles that are wrapped with fiberglass. And again, they have a maximum of 15 years. Staff is presenting to this report to council to gauge the interest to allowing staff to enter or issue a request for proposal. Would be for the maximum of 512,000. This proposal would be a one sum as compared to the 3-year. It would be a total replacement of the packs. In the proposal, staff will recommend that the fire reserve be used primarily, and that the rate stabilization reserve possibly used for capital. If used, the 210,000, 92,000 will be allocated for 2026 and 2027 respectively, can be covered by reserve transfers and applicable capital budgets to ensure that the reserves used for the single year procurement will be replenished. The above reserves are not anticipated to be used in 2025 at this time. However, that with the 2025 and 2026 operating draft budget considerations at special meeting on March 27th, there's potential that council chooses to use rate stabilization in whole or in part to reduce the tax levy to ratepayers. Staff seeks council's direction with regards to this this proposal to issue an RFP. I can tell you that it is difficult to obtain any significant savings over a multi-year procurement because we're not buying that many packs at a time or bottles. And the other bad news is that 2/3 of our bottles are due now or due within the next year. It was again part of that large process. The nice thing about an RFP, as you know, it does not bind us into any quote that is given to us. At any time we can deny the RFP. We do not have to enter into it. This is not a tender, and we're under no obligation to accept any particular bid. And then the other thing is that it is council that will ultimately accept the bid. And if council decides that they do not want to accept it, that's the wording is in the RFP that is within their prerogative. At least this way, if we issue an RFP, I'll be able to bring back to council the true cost of these SCBA's. And that is my report for council.
All right, thank you for that, Chief. Any questions from council members? Councilor Emerson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, is there any way in the RFP to determine country of origin for the parts and favor maybe some other than our partners to the south?
That's a good point.
Your worship, response to the counselor, your worship. We know who our partners are, or who our suppliers are, but I will ensure that that is asked during the RFP process to ensure that we get that. I do know that one supplier in particular is based out of Germany, which is not part of the tariff process that is, hopefully that's in place that I know of.
Unless they land at a US port.
Again,
Well, just maybe the lowest price in this instance is not the best thing.
Understood. Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a clarification that an RFP does not bind the municipality to the lowest price. The municipality can choose whatever proposal it sees fit. So price is only one of the components that's involved in scoring an RFP.
Councilor Chilcott? You're muted.
Sorry about that. My question to Harry is, what would it look like if we split it into 2 years? Because I'm looking at this, in 15 years, you're going to do everything in one shot again. And I'm sure that the council of the day won't be happy to have to replace everything all at one time. Do not begrudge you guys getting your units. Of course, you absolutely have to have them. I'm just wondering if there's a way of splitting it that would be economical as well.
All right, Thomas, you have an answer for that?
Yeah, I can take that question, Mr. Mayor. So through to council, the way that would be done is we do procurement near the end of the year with half delivered in invoiced in Q4 of this year, half delivered and invoiced in Q1 of 2026. That would be the only way to do it. I know the reason that it was broken out this way in the budget as a 3-year was to avoid just this doing one procurement and have everything due at once. This is something that's also been kind of pushed back for a couple of years because of some of the other cost pressures in the municipality's been facing. And it's put us up in a bit of a place because now we have to replace 2/3 of the stock at once rather than doing kind of, 33%. I'll send this back over to the fire chief if he has anything to add for that.
All right, Chief.
Your worship, I can say that in a previous department I did come from, is that it was with council's approval that they put a reserve so that we know that our long ticket items, our major ticket items are coming, and every year a little reserve is put in there. So when that ticket item does come available, there's a large reserve to counter it. That is something that I would have to discuss with other staff, but that's one way of looking at it.
Yep. Councilor Chilcott.
Thank you. One other thought is we've been trying to work with other municipalities and do more of a bulk buy. Is there any other municipalities that might want to purchase some of these units at the same time and possibly get all of our costs down?
Your worship, through your worship, I can assure you that that has been discussed with other municipalities in our county and elsewhere. And I know that even the suppliers will, if there is several municipalities buying a product, they will lump us all together. They have done that in the past, not even within our county, as long as they're within our province. So they are actually trying to look into our best interest. We have no other municipality in our county that is coming due. I have asked, and that is the reality of the situation. Malahide just bought all theirs a couple of years ago, so their process has started.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. We seem to have a lot of trouble with the equipment taking a long time when we order it. Are we confident that if this goes out and we order it, are we gonna see these packs this year, or are we gonna be?
To your worship, part of the criteria, in the proposed, RFP that I'm assembled, as CO there was, stating, is that price is only one part.
Mhm.
In the proposed, I'm also put in 25% of that grading will be firefighters testing the equipment, running it through the obstacle course and making sure that they're comfortable. And which one do they feel comfortable with? Part of it is the warranty. Certain brands are now saying from shelf life, from the beginning to the end, it's warranted 100%.
Mm.
So others is the service. And so everything that we're looking at is part of that plan, not just one. So it's included in the evaluation process.
Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just another quick point regarding, the timeline for procurement and that sort of thing. I think what the chief is presenting in his report is he's looking for direction regarding 3-year versus 1 year, so we can proceed with an RFP ASAP to try to get in front of this June deadline, which under NFPA is going to increase the standard. So even though a 2-year procurement may be possible under one RFP to straddle 25, 26, and we don't hit the deadline for the change to NFPA standards, and we're still potentially taking on increased cost. I think the impetus from Harry here is to try to see if we can do all of this in 1 year based upon the proposal, rather than straddling it over 2 or 3. Is that fair to say, Chief?
That, and also that when you get into different models, every individual has to be trained to the models that you have. So there's added training and could be to confusion. By having one model and only one model, you limit that chance for error down.
All right. 2 things from my perspective. One, can you define what a bulk purchase is? How many units? You're talking 50, but you know what I'm trying to get at? What does the supplier consider a bulk purchase?
I have not asked that question. Your Worship.
Okay. Second question is, if you initiate the process now and try to split this over 2 years, does it meet the NFPA standard? They
Again,
will not meet past June, but if you initiate now to receive the equipment, as Thomas is suggesting, late, Q4 and Q1 of 26.
all I can do is ask your worship, the suppliers.
Like, I like the idea of trying to spread this cost over multiple budgets. And I like the idea, as Councillor Chilcott has put out, that I would hate to saddle the next council down the road 15 years from now with one big purchase. Okay, when all this equipment comes due, it's nice to have it scattered over different budget cycles. So it's not that big of an item, but I also recognize the equipment standards of what he's trying to suggest. And uniformity across our departments is probably a very big bonus, so that you don't have multiple training requirements.
Mm.
So, yeah, Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think my only concern about a staggered approach is, is there gonna be any appetite to quote that?
I can ask.
Yeah,
Again, this June may be the complication
right.
because they're coming to a new standard, and everything made after June has to be to the new standard. So I anticipate what they're going to try to quote is to get rid of any stock they currently have
Mm.
and then go to the new standard. I can only ask your worship and bring it back to council when the RFP is completed and see what you think of this.
Well,
Councillor Chilcott. You're muted.
Did I understand that right? They're possibly going to sell us the old stock and then we're going to have to replace or upgrade in 6 months? Is that
No.
what you're
No, I
saying?
apologize. The current stock that they have on tap, which meets the current standard. if that makes sense.
But we have
And-
new standard coming.
There is a
me
brand new
too.
standard coming that's gonna affect the making of all new equipment. As long as we purchase within the current standard, we will be good. As long as we have that pack. But if we were to go and purchase half now with current standard and then have to wait for half after June, it's gonna be a different pack.
Okay, Counselor Chilcott.
So I guess my next question is, we have a current standard and then we have a new standard coming. Is the new standard safer, better quality? Like, we need to look after the firefighters as best as we can, and I wouldn't want to cheap out on getting old stock, current stock, and then in 6 months' time, there'd be something that was more helpful to keeping them safe.
Okay, Thomas, you have an answer for that?
Just a quick one. I'll pass it over to the chief if I miss anything here, but change to an NFP standard generally increases the quality of the product. The report does identify that you'd likely have enhanced electronics and better compatibility with other firefighting equipment. I'll pass over to Harry about what that specifically would entail. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you're enhancing an NFPA standard, you're enhancing the quality of the equipment that comes out of it.
I would concur with that, but with that new enhancement, is gonna be a greater cost.
Just gonna say.
Much, and that's why I'm here before you.
Uh-huh.
Counselor Emerson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, question. If it's important to have standardized equipment so people aren't confused and eventually we all have to go to that new standard, and speaking to Lauren's treasurer's comment in the meeting before that money is pretty cheap that we can borrow, why don't we consider buying everything that we need and putting it over time instead of splitting the purchase out over 3 years? What's the difference actually? Why don't we just do it right and use the cheap money that we supposedly have access to?
Well,
Hmm.
we will be using our internal reserves, but gets back to what the report is suggesting, just to confirm that we'll be dipping into the fire budget to replenish those reserves in 26 and 27.
The capital reserves that we have put in for this
That's
will
what
be
I'm saying.
reallocated back to the reserves. Absolutely.
Okay, that gets to what you were getting at, Counselor Emerson.
Yeah,
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 that's-
except that
yeah.
instead of stretching the reserves, we could borrow money and do it too.
Not sure. Can we get IO
Well, there was
funding?
a capital item and Lauren said there was lots of cheap money for a capital item available to us.
I can't speak to whether it applies to this type of capital item. Generally speaking, IO debt is for construction. So you're talking road, water, stormwater, wastewater, that sort of thing.
But just as long as, we just wanted to make sure the chief understood that way I interpret it as it'll be coming out of the fire budget down the road to replenish those reserves if we go with the plan.
Your worship, I anticipated nothing else, if I may be honest with you.
All right.
We put when I came to floor council with the capital budget, I anticipated that we would be paying for this. Absolutely.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Thomas, are you sure that we can't use those?
Infrastructure on tier.
It's infrastructure, Ontario, so it's not specific to rolling stock. Unfortunately, we don't have the treasurer here tonight to formally answer that question, but my understanding is that they utilize that for actual, infrastructure that's being constructed. So, above ground, below ground facilities, that sort of thing, and not specifically for something like rolling stock or for equipment procurement.
Thank you for the clarification.
One final question, chief. If we go ahead with the plan as suggested and purchase the, as you say, the existing stock, we will not be putting our volunteers at risk because new stock is coming forward or new standards as of June. Because they'll be using this for the next 15 years.
Your worship, I would not be standing before you if I thought I was putting my firefighters at risk.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear. And I think council wanted that comfort level too.
And I go back to it is an RFP and you have
Yes,
the
it's an
final voice.
RFP. Okay. if you concurred yet. All right, okay. Any additional questions or comments before we put a motion on the floor? Okay. We have a proposed motion that Megan is going to draft for us, because it's looking for direction. So my understanding then that the consensus of council at this point would be to accept the report and to take the advice to do the bulk procurement up front with refunding over the next two budget cycles, those reserves. Is that more or less what I'm hearing? I'm getting nods. And I'll let Megan craft something up here. Oh. What, the deputy clerk's doing this? Brief pause in the proceedings.
For you, Mr. Mayor, if I
Yes,
could
please.
just ask Harry one more clarification question. So if we're going out to RFP, standards are changing in June, this is a turnaround, this is a pretty tight turnaround.
Through your worship, I've given our suppliers notification already.
Okay, thank
They
you.
know this is coming.
Yeah.
That it could be coming. I
Mhm.
said it was subject to your approval. And if it was coming, that I plan on next council meeting to bring back the RFP.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you.
Good.
Please.
Okay. The proposed motion would read that to report FR 0225, single year procurement capital item number FD 05, self-contained breathing apparatus SCBA replacement be received for information, and that council amends capital item number FD 05 to permit a single year procurement in 2025 using additional funds from the following reserves. So that would be $222,399 from the fire reserve, $132,080 from the rate stabilization reserve.
All right, do we have a mover and seconder for that? Got Counselor Emerson, and I'm gonna take Counselor Chilcott. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, your worship. Thank you, council.
Bring us a good report.
Mhm.
You know, the other type job up here, it's a lot easier.
You're right.
I'll reserve a comment for later. Okay, next up is report PS 0325 by Steve Adams, Manager of Public Works, Drainage Superintendent regarding tender award RFT 2501, supply and apply dust control. This is a goodie.
Thank you, your worship. Yes, the report before you is to award the RFT 2501 for the supply and application of dust control. That went out on February 12th. The old agreement with Pollard Highway Products ended the end of December 2024. So staff issued this RFP or sorry, for the supply and application of, it's an average annual about 350,000 liters of dust suppression. This is applicated over the last 5 years. This is the average. Last year, with a wet summer, we ended up putting just under 260,000 liters. So it made a significant difference, which also brought the budget down. However, the RFT closed March 7th at 11 a.m. With 3 bids received. The lowest compliant bid that was submitted by 552976 Ontario Limited for the price of $500 per flake ton. This amounts to an average annual of $74,500 at the current application rate. So the 500 flake ton is a little confusing, and I don't want to get in the weeds on that. However, just for comparison, it is an 80% increase than our 2019 tender price. So this tender document is for 3 years with 2 additional years. And talking to the contractors, it was definitely taken and accounted for, not knowing what the economy is gonna do. It's not the best. We knew we were gonna see an increase, however, not anywhere near what was, so, Holland Inc., I'm gonna call them, that's the company name that, is the 552976. They've been supplying for quite some time. I referenced 3 of their current, municipalities used for it, very good, comments from them, delivered on time, delivered quantities as needed. Much bigger municipalities, we're actually a third of what they are and what they spread, so we're considered a little small fish to them. However, the rates themselves, the stuff we're currently using right now is a 20% calcium chloride. And this stuff is actually a 30%. So if you notice within the report, there's also a bid for 35%. So the 30% is actually still a natural. The 35% is a mixed. So this stuff will be coming out of the US. It comes from Lake Huron, but it comes from the other side of Lake Huron. Our current contractor brings it from this side of Lake Huron. Same deposit, same salt deposit, however. So unfortunately, they were $50 more a flake ton, and it is a significant difference over time. However, they've been good to us too for the last year. So staff are proposing in the operating budget. It has been adjusted for a higher dollar value. However, with the 30%, and knowing this summer, we're still hoping that we can, this 30% will go on a little bit thinner, which hopefully our dollar value will go a little bit further. So it will be a little bit of a test year with this product. However, right now there's actually the 30%. There's only one municipality. It's a brand new product they're using that they found actually as they went deeper in the salt mine where they get this product under the lake. So it's tested. We got the test reports, everything tests. There's that magnesium in it, which creates a really good bond. And that's what they add in the 35%. So staff are here for any other questions.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that, Steve. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Chilcott. Should we let her go on this way?
You've got the 30, the 30% and the 20%. So you said the 30% you might be able to put a thinner layer on to make it go further, or is the 30% going to just last longer than the 20% would? Like, is it actually more cost efficient?
Yeah, through your worship. Staff have to look at every road we apply this to. We have different rates for different roads based on the soil conditions, shaded areas. Currently, we pretty much put one application with the 20% on. We get through the year. If there is regrading done and we have budget allocated, we will put another, but we generally have only put one application. However, all we do here is it's a numbers game where we would put 4 flake ton on with the 20%. Maybe now we put 3 flake ton. When you look at the big quantities of it, that's where we'd be reducing it. So it's still an 80% increase no matter what. That's the bottom line. If we have a very dry year, we can see even higher dollar value. So it's not really a win-win for the municipality at this point. It's dust control is not just used for dust, it's also used for structural. And it's pretty important in the base. So it's not something that we can run from. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of applicators in Southern Ontario. The 3 that are in Southern Ontario bid. 2 of these also do Northern Ontario as well. That's how it's a quantity issue. Obviously, as you can imagine, the amounts of material that has to go out every year in Southern Ontario's roads. It's with our 55 kilometers, and just in the West Elgin, when Dutton Dunwich and Southwold were there into the 200s kilometers. So yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Emerson.
What happens if April 2nd there's a countervailing duty on the American product that you bought?
Through your worship, that question, I talked to the owner of this. This is our price. My guess is
So
he
he's gonna
has,
take-
he has 45 days to bail on it.
Oh,
That's within the tender.
Yeah.
So if I foresee, you're gonna see the grader out there really quickly. If I foresee him raising the price, this price should well cover what they're asking for. That's how he described it to me. All three of them were the same. I didn't just talk to this one. I talked to the other two suppliers too. That's the general of what they're doing. The other prices that have gone out, we've seen higher prices in Southern Ontario than this. Our neighbors next door, their bid was $50 more. But the uncertainty is definitely there no matter what. Unfortunately, I can't answer however, there is clauses in, we can cancel it and so can they.
Additional questions? Okay, and I thank you for asking that one, because that was on my mind too.
Mhm.
it's nice to see Steve.
Yeah.
Checking that out.
Mhm.
Yes, it is. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Steve, just out of curiosity, so we all gravel roads get one application every year for dust control within the municipality.
That's correct.
So what if there is a complaint from the community that they have increased dust? Do you go back out?
Yeah, generally staff will assess the road and I didn't mention it. They do deliver to our yard as well. They generally, this RFT is for apply and delivery right to the road. They also deliver to our yard, which we have the resources to put it on. So sometimes if it's a smaller road, we'll do it with our own truck, and you may have seen this throughout the year. Generally, that's those type of applications. If I have enough or we're working on capital projects, this will also go with our capital projects. Like we do try to, we have to maintain the dust on when we pulverize the road as well. So there's a little bit added on the capital budget with this as well. However, yes, it's based off service complaints and if it warrants for another application.
Supplementary through you, Mr. Mayor. So the 300 tons, how much of that is contingency? How much of that sits at the yard just in case?
So the 300 ton, we don't hit anywhere. We never have. We've always bid on that. I asked all three of these contractors if that was a problem to bid that way. Either of them, even the current one, I even checked on that to make sure if we only use 100 of that 300, it doesn't change the price. It's all the same. All three contractors agreed. However, no, that's basically the gist of that, I guess, is, the price that you're seeing within the tender, it's obviously a lot higher, but I did state, I think within the report, what we actually use on an annual basis. So I think we're around 145, 149 flake ton, average per
Right.
year.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, anything additional? Okay. We have a motion that reads a report PS 0325 regarding tender award RFT 2501. The 2025 to 2027 supply and applied dust control be received for information. And that the contract for the 2025 to 2027 supply and applied dust control be granted to 552976 Ontario Limited in accordance with their tender submission in the amount of $500 plus HST per flake ton. And that the appropriate bylaw to enter into an agreement with 552976 Ontario Limited for the provision of 2025-2027 supply and applied dust to be brought forward. Can I put in dust control? I don't want to apply dust. For council's consideration. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Weisler, Councilor Chilcott. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. You caught that in the motion. Yep. All right. I'd hate to have Steve out there applying dust. Okay, we have section 12, Development Services, Sustainability and Conservation, 12.1 correspondence, 12.1.1 to receive for information. 5 items. Item A, notice of application regarding the proposed draft plan of subdivision from Countryside Communities, Inc. B, notice of passing regarding zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 0325 Underhill Farms Limited. C, notice of public meeting regarding proposed minor variance COA 0425 Hebert. D, notice of public meeting regarding proposed minor variance COA 0525 Dreger, Hebert, and Schmidt. And E, notice of public meeting regarding proposed zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 0925 Augustin. Any questions regarding any of these pieces of correspondence? Then a mover and seconder for the following, that items 12.11A through E be received for information. Councillor Emerson will move, Councillor Chilcott will second. All in favor? And that is carried. Moving on with 12.2, reports to council. We have report DS 1215 by Margaret Underhill, Planning Coordinator, Deputy Clerk, regarding the rezoning application ZBA 0425 Fair at 11010 Cloden Road. Mark. See binary.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report before council is to deal with a rezoning application submitted by appointed agent Mike Kromzak. He submitted the application on behalf of the owners Abraham and Anita Fair for their property at 11010 Culloden Road. The lands are designated agriculture, portions of natural heritage. And the purpose of the rezoning is to rezone a portion of the subject lands that's a result of a severance and a lot addition. So the effect of the bylaw will be to recognize the existing agricultural use of the combined lots in accordance with our official plan. And it will be part of the clearing of consent conditions for Elgin Land Division Committee File number E9224 that was conditionally approved on January 22nd, 2025. We held the public meeting on March 6th, and there were no signed-in attendees and no written submissions. So staff report 8624, council considered the consent application E9224 with the planner's memorandum, noting that rezoning was required to rezone the severed parcel that would be the subject of the lot addition. Responding agencies include Southwestern Public Health, Long Point Region Conservation Authority, and they both have no objection to the zoning amendment. So in conclusion, staff and planner concur the rezoning application meets the policies, recommend approval to change the zoning on the severed parcel from agriculture A1 to agricultural A1A to match the zoning of the lands with which it will be consolidated. And I leave it with you, Your Worship, for any questions.
All right, thank you very much for that report, Mark. Does anyone have any concerns or questions? Fairly straightforward. Thank you. We have a motion that reads report DS 1525 regarding the fair, rezoning application ZBA 0425 be received for information. And that pursuant to Planning Act Regulations Bill 73 Smart Growth for Our Communities Act 2015, it be pointed out that at a public participation meeting held March the 6th, 2025, associated with this application, there were no attendees, no oral presentations, no public written submissions, and 2 agency submissions from the Southwestern Public Health and Long Point Region Conservation Authority received regarding this matter, and that all considerations were taken into account in council's decision passing this resolution, and that zoning bylaw number Z 456/2003 as amended be further amended by changing the zoning on lands located at lot 6 concession 9, specifically the severed parcel from agricultural A1 to agricultural A1A, to permit the addition of a parcel with an area of 7.27 hectares to an existing lot as part of the clearing of consent condition of Elgin Land Division Committee File number E9224, and that zoning bylaw number Z 800-2025 be presented to council for enactment. We have a mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Chilcott. All in favor? That is carried. Item B, report DS 1625 by Margaret Hill, Planning Coordinator, Deputy Clerk, regarding the rezoning application ZBA 0525 at 1830567 Ontario Inc. at 55942 Maple Grove Line. Margaret, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report before you and council it is regarding a rezoning application submitted by appointed agent Jesse Froese on behalf of the owner 1830567 Ontario Inc. The property is designated as agriculture, and the purpose of the bylaw amendment is to rezone two portions of the subject land as a result of a surplus farm dwelling severance. The effect of the bylaw will be to recognize the residential nature of the newly created residential lot and to prohibit new dwellings on the retained farm parcel, all in accordance with our official plan. And part of the clearing of consent conditions, number 1 and 2 for the Elgin Land Division Committee, file number E225, conditionally approved on January 22nd, 2025. We held the public meeting March 6th with one signed-in attendee being the agent, Jesse Froese, and no written public submissions. Previously, staff report DS 8824 regarding the consent application E225 with the planner's memorandum was presented and considered by council on December the 19th, 2024. Land Division Committee granted the consent on January 22nd and included the conditions to rezone both the severed and the retained parcels. Responding agencies include Southwestern Public Health, providing attached comments, having no objection. So staff and planner concur the rezoning meets the policies. We recommend approval to change the zoning on the severed parcel from A1 zone to site-specific rural residential, RR45, and that would permit a minimum lot frontage of 13.4 meters, and the retained parcel from A1 to site-specific special agricultural A218 to prohibit new dwellings and permit a minimum lot area of 9.3 hectares. And I leave it with you, Your Worship, for questions.
Thank you very much for that report, Mark. Does anyone have any questions? Right. Seeing none, the motion reads that report DS 1625 regarding the 1830567 Ontario Inc. rezoning application ZBA 0525 be received for information. And that pursuant to the Planning Act Regulations Bill 73 Smart Growth for Our Communities Act 2015, it be pointed out that at the public participation meeting held March the 6th, 2025, associated with this application, only the appointed agent attended, and there were no public oral presentations, no public written submissions, and one agency submission from the Southwestern Public Health received regarding this matter. And that all considerations were taken into account in council's decision passing this resolution, and that zoning bylaw number Z 456/2003 as amended be further amended by changing the zoning on the lands located in lot 19 concession 8, specifically the severed parcel from agricultural A1 zone to site-specific rural residential RR-45 zone, to recognize the residential nature of the new residential lot, and from agricultural A1 zone to site-specific special agricultural A2 zone, A2-18 zone, to prohibit new dwellings on the retained farm parcel in accordance with official plan policies for surplus farm dwelling severances, and as a part of clearing consent conditions of Elgin Land Division Committee, file number E2-25. And that zoning bylaw number Z 801-2025 be presented to council for enactment. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Chilcott will move. Councillor Emerson will second. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have 1 minute to a public meeting. I don't think you can get through it in a minute, Marty.
Cross seeded a bunch of grass. I thought it was too late. I put it on a drone.
Oh, did you?
Freaking awesome. That drone could pick you up.
Are you ready? Okay. It is 8 PM and we have a drainage public meeting. Call this meeting to order. I will remind members of disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. This evening, we're discussing the Bartley Drain Public Notice pursuant to Chapter D17, Section 41 of the Drainage Act. The purpose of the public meeting is to consider engineer's report number 224135 regarding the reassessment on the Bartley Drain serving parts of lots 4 to 9, concessions 8 and 9. And we will entertain the staff presentation. Report DR 0225 by Steve Adams, Manager of Public Works, Drainage Superintendent regarding the Bartley Drain Reassessment Consideration Report. Steve, please.
Thank you again. So yes, the presentation public meeting before you, in regards to the Bartley Drain reassessment. If council recalls, last year, drainage staff were called out for a couple complaints on the Bartley Drain in regards to water backing up. Upon inspection, we did find this was true, so we started digging into the drainage assessments, and we found that it was very unfair for certain property owners. There's a lot of properties on this drain, and there's been a lot of development in that corner of the municipality, and 3 or 4 different plans, so there is some overlapping stuff. And if council recalls, May 2nd, we appointed Spreets Associate to prepare an updated schedule, which was filed on February, or it was, the report was February 20th. And yeah, it's a pretty straightforward public meeting. The drain's already built. This was based on the assessment. As we know, the assessments schedules, we discussed that at the quarter revision. This meeting is kind of based the same as a petition drain. We have to utilize the same procedures. So our clerk sent out notices to all landowners affected March 3rd, and here we are tonight. Our municipal engineer, drainage engineers here on site, he prepared the report. If council has any questions for him, he can maybe give you a quick brief overview of what Spreets had to do to create this report, updated report, and I'll leave it up to him.
Welcome, John.
Thank you. Yes, as Steve, through your worship, as Steve said, there were 3 reports on this drain. One was in 1954, one was 1963, and the last one was 1978. As everyone knows, there's been a lot of development in that area. I mean, if you look at the plan, to give you an example, there's a legend on one of the sides, and there's about 78 smaller lots. So I highly doubt there were 78 small lots there in 1954 when they did that report. So when Steve goes to bill it out, it's not fair, because there's been too many severances, too many changes in land use and everything over those years. So as he said, we were appointed to prepare a new assessment schedule. So we were provided an assessment schedule for the whole drain from the bottom end to the top end. As Steve also said, it's a 2-meeting process. Even though there's no construction tonight, we still have to have this meeting, and the next meeting will deal with the assessments. Are there any questions?
No, fairly straightforward for me, other than this is the first time been through this kind of a reassessment.
Yeah.
Very different.
It's different, but I understand the process. It's a public process.
The maintenance that Steve could do, sometimes we do a construction on the report and the new assessment schedule. The maintenance that he Steve do under the old reports. So there was no point in going through the expense of doing that. He just needs a new assessment schedule so he can fairly assess out costs.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that, John. At this point, is there anyone from the public that wants to make a comment? And I assume, Steve, you've had no correspondence on this.
That's correct.
Any additional questions or anything from council? So the quarter revision is scheduled for next month. Okay. Well, thanks for coming down, John.
Thank you.
Was a quick
Yes.
visit.
We haven't seen you for a while. Okay. We have a motion before us that reads Report DR 0225 regarding the Bartley Drain Reassessment Consideration Report being received for information. And that in accordance with section 44 to 46 of the Drainage Act, the Council of the Corporation and Municipality of Bayham hereby adopts Street Associates Report number 224135, dated February the 20th, 2025, referred to as the Bartley Drain Reassessment Report. And that provisional bylaw number 2025-021 be given a first and second reading, and that the clerk be directed to distribute copies of the provisional bylaw and notice of the time and place of the first sitting of the quarter revision to the affected parties pursuant to section 46(2) of the Drainage Act. And that a date of April the 17th, 2025 at 8 p.m. be set for the first sitting of the quarter revision. Do I have a mover and seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Weiser, Councillor Chilcott. All in favor? That's carried. Need the adjournment? That pursuant to the Drainage Act requirements, the public meeting is now complete at 8:06 p.m. Mover and seconder, Councillor Emerson, Deputy Mayor Weiser. All in favor? Carried. That's the quickest drainage
Right?
meeting I've ever been in. Yeah. Oh, it's efficient. Thank you.
6
Thank you for that efficiency.
Let's go.
Perfect. Okay. Resuming our agenda, we have the fastest report coming up from Marg. She already told us she could do it in 1 minute. This is report DS 1725 by Margaret Underhill, Planning Coordinator, Deputy Clerk, regarding the rezoning application ZBA 0625 Wood at 9837 Coyle Road. Mark, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report is before you if you have any questions.
I love it.
I've
Nice.
heard that sudden difference. At least it didn't work out so well for staff.
That's
but-
hilarious. That's good.
Appointed agent Jesse Froese submitted a rezoning application on behalf of the owners Richard and Karen Wood. They wish to rezone a portion of their property from 9837 Coyle Road. The lands are designated as agriculture, natural heritage, and natural gas reservoir, and do have a small portion of hazard land and significant woodlands. However, the only designation that is affecting the portion that's going to be severed is that it's agriculture. Purpose of the bylaw amendment is to meet the municipal condition number 1 for the Elgin Land Division Committee application E8824. And it's to facilitate that severance of agricultural land and rezone the lands as follows. So we would be rezoning from A1 to site-specific rural residential RR46 for the severed lands to be consistent with the resulting land use and consistent with our official plan policies for surplus farm dwellings, and to permit the relief from section 7.4 to permit a minimum lot frontage of 41.5 meters, whereas 50 is required. Also, A1 zone to special agricultural A2 for the retained lands to be consistent with the resulting land use and official plan policies for surplus farm dwellings and to prohibit new dwellings. The effect of the bylaw is to meet the condition of the consent. The public meeting was held on March 6th with one signed-in attendee being the agent Jesse Froese and no written public submissions. Council did consider staff report DS 8524 along with the planner's memorandum on November 21st, 2024. And the Elgin Land Division Committee granted the consent on January 22nd, 2025, and included the condition to rezone both the severed and retained parcels. Responding agencies include Southwestern Public Health and Long Point Region Conservation Authority, both having no objection to the zoning amendment. So staff and planner concur the rezoning application meets the policies, recommend approval to change the zoning on the severed parcel from A1 to RR46 to permit the reduced lot frontage and the zoning on the retained parcel from A1 to special agriculture A2 to prohibit new dwellings. And I now leave it with you, your worship, for any questions.
Thank you very much for that very explanatory notation on the report. So,
Okay.
any questions for staff on this? See, by taking a little extra time and explaining the full report, just sails through. We have a motion then that reads that report DS 1725 regarding the wood rezoning application ZBA 0625 be received for information. And that pursuant to Planning Act Regulations Bill 73 Smart Growth for Our Communities Act 2015, it be pointed out that at the public participation meeting held March the 6th, 2025, associated with this application, only the appointed agent attended, and there were no public oral presentations and 2 agency submissions from the Southwestern Public Health and Long Point Region Conservation Authority received regarding this matter, and that all considerations were taken into account in council's decision passing this resolution, and that zoning bylaw number Z 456/2003 as amended be further amended by changing the zoning on lands located in lots 24 and 25 concession 8, specifically the severed parcel from agricultural A1 zone to site-specific rural residential RR-46 zone to recognize the residential nature of the new residential lot, and from agricultural A1 to special agricultural A2 zone to prohibit new dwellings on the retained farm parcel in accordance with the official plan policies for surplus farm dwelling severances, and as part of the clearing of consent conditions of Elgin Land Division Committee file number E88-24. And that zoning bylaw number Z 802-2025 be presented to council for enactment. Do I have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Emerson, Councillor Chilcott. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Moving on to section 13, finance and administration, 13.1 correspondence, 13.11 to receive for information. Item A. Township of Coleman regarding the need for improvements of highways 11 and 17. Item B, Town of Bradford West Gwillimbury regarding the request landlord tenant reforms. C, Durham Region regarding protecting Canadian values, ban the Nazi swastika in Canada. D, City of Sarnia regarding the carbon tax. E, Municipality of Chatham-Kent regarding impacts of tariffs. F, Municipality of East Ferris regarding standing for Canada. G, Long Point Region Conservation Authority regarding the February 5th, 2025 meeting minutes. H, Town of Tillsonburg regarding the TGO Intercommunity Transit. I, Elgin County regarding the March 11th, 2025 from Council Chambers. J, Long Point Region Conservation Authority regarding the annual report and financial statements. Lengthy list. Does anyone have any item they wish to speak to? Councillor Emerson.
I think I wouldn't mind it if we consider supporting number F or letter F.
Standing for Canada. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, I'm gonna make a comment then regarding item H, Town of Tillsonburg, TGO Intercommunity Transit. Very unfortunate that the transit line, which included the run that runs from Tillsonburg down through Port Burwell, with the stops Eden, Stratford, Vienna, and Port Burwell, will be discontinued as of the end of the month due to lack of upper level of government, upper level support. As noted, I read the new Tillsonburg paper, this last little one to come out. And I read through there and I was a little disappointed where the comments suggested that the town had reached out to its neighbors to see if anyone was interested in helping to support this line, and there was no interest expressed, and so they decided to discontinue. I want to state categorically that Bayham was never contacted. I find that a little insulting. I'll be taking that up with the mayor of the town of Tillsonburg. All right. So, point is, it will be missed. Rural transit systems are hard to get going. Uh, they are expensive to run. There isn't a transit system that doesn't have upper levels of government support to make them work. Rural ones are a little more different because you don't have the same ridership and they're traveling greater distances. And the funding formulas that exist through the gas tax don't fit our models. I know that we have been making the argument to ministry officials for the last couple of years. It's fallen on deaf ears so far. Hopefully there'll be future opportunity to reignite and get the interest going. There are 9 rural transit systems in this area. And unfortunately, this one's not going to continue. So maybe in the future we can reignite it. It's my comments. Forewarning to Mayor Gilvazy, I'm coming. Anyone else? All right. Megan. Please.
That items 1311A through J be received for information and that council for the corporation of the municipality of Bayham supports item F.
Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Emerson and Deputy Mayor Weisler. All in favor? Any opposed? I'm gonna take it that you supported that, Councillor Chilcott. Carried. 13.2, reports to council. Item A, report CAO 1625 by Thomas Thayer, CAO regarding public comments received, stop up, close and convey part 1 on Plan 11R-11305, part of 4th Street. Thomas, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a follow-up report to report CAO 12 regarding acquisition, stop up, close and convey of that part of 4th Street. Since that report was received, the municipality has formally acquired for nominal consideration Part 1 on Plan 11-305 being part of 4th Street in Stratfordville with the intent of formally stopping up, closing, and then formally conveying it to the trustees of the Stratfordville Evangelical Mennonite Church. So we published a comment period formally on February the 27th of this year until March 13th. So formal 14 days. Public notice was published on the municipal website and on the Elmer Express. The notice is attached to this report for council's information. No comments were received on this file. And given the lack of comments, staff would recommend proceeding with the stop up, close and conveyance. The conveyance would be to the trustees of the Stratfordville Evangelical Mennonite Church for nominal consideration. All survey legal costs will be recouped by the Stratfordville EMC. So with that, Mr. Mayor, the motion is before you and there is a bylaw later on in the agenda for council's consideration.
All right, thank you for that report, Thomas. Does anyone have any concerns or questions? Okay. We have a motion that reads a report CAO 1625 regarding public comments received, stop up, closed, and convey part 1 on Plan 11R-11305, part of 4th Street, Stratfordville, be received for information. And that council acknowledges that there were no public comments received during the comment period on this file. And that the council of the corporation and municipality of Bayham directs the stop up, close, and conveyance of part 1 on Plan 11R-11305 to the trustees of Stratfordville Evangelical Mennonite Church, and that the appropriate bylaw be brought forward for council's consideration. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Emerson, Deputy Mayor Wiseman. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item B, report CAO 1725 by Thomas Thayer, CEO, regarding stop up, close and convey Emberson, part of Area Street.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a request coming in from landowners Mike and Kimberly Emberson, owners of 70 Area Street in Port Burwell. They've reached out to the municipality to acquire a portion of Area Street, basically their frontage. The primary benefit of this disposition would be to relieve the municipality and the landowners of any obligations respecting an encroachment of part of the main dwelling into the road allowance. Currently, with the encroachment, the landowners have to provide us with insurance coverage through an encroachment agreement. So the graphic attached to this report shows the approximate boundaries of the road allowance to be considered for disposition. So staff have reviewed and discussed these options, including a site visit to the lands and discussions with the property owner, Mr. Mike Emberson. We had to have these discussions to consider the impacts to 3 areas. The 3 areas is located to the south of 7 areas, and as council is aware, has been redesignated under the official plan and rezoned by way of bylaw number 765/2023 to permit a denser development. This was the Ontario Land Tribunal final order that was received by council in March of 2024. So the whole width of the road allowance cannot be disposed of to 7 areas because we're still required to provide legal access over areas to 3 areas. And the reason is because upon title search, 2 Robinson and 3 areas have yet to merge on title. Once they merge, frontage is legally on Robinson Street. But since that hasn't occurred, we have to keep that available for 3 areas. So with that said, the proposed part of the road allowance for disposition is a boulevard to the west of the road allowance that encompasses part of the sidewalk and encompasses the encroaching dwelling. This eliminates the encroachment, but maintains access over the traveled portion of Erius. And the solution also offsets the need for a servicing easement as Erius contains municipal water and sanitary infrastructure. A graphic is also attached to this report showing the location of the water and the sanitary line. Based upon the request and the proposal that staff have been able to work out with the landowner to bring before council, we seek council's direction to proceed under the municipality's sale of surplus municipal lands policy. This is bylaw 2015-021, which would include a survey and registration, appraisal and notice period, and all costs payable by the landowners. Landowners are aware of this. Specific boundaries of the lands to be conveyed would be formalized through the registered survey. So the graphic is simply done as an approximation, seeking council's direction for how they wish to proceed at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that report, Thomas. Does anyone have any questions or concerns? Of course, the obvious question is, the Embersons are made aware of this, and is this an acceptable solution for them?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, last week, the manager of Public Works and I met on site with Mike Emberson, and we talked about this solution. So they are aware of this.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay.
Just to be clear, that the red through you, Mr. Mayor, the red triangle there in the diagram is the disposed part, right?
That's correct, yes.
It's an considering the fact that we still have to maintain access to, as you say, 3 areas. It's an innovative solution.
It is, Mr. Mayor, and to be fair, once those 2 parcels merge on title, should they merge on title, then we may be able to consider disposition of the remainder of that section of the road allowance.
Okay, thank you.
To the north? Is that what you mean? Why
No.
wouldn't you just carry that straight to the north? I'm just curious, like at the eastern side of the triangle up, because it almost makes that like a building lot.
Where's the next house?
Like to the north of
Yeah, there's
the,
one up here.
I mean, it's just a weird shape, like,
Yeah, there's a house right in here.
do you know what I mean?
You're saying take it to the lot.
I think what the councilor is mentioning is just kind of run that point straight north
Yeah.
and then dispose of additional frontages. We'd have to get buy-in from those landowners too. So if they don't, you end up with kind of this weird pattern of disposition.
Okay, so the other, okay, all right.
And again, the red is just a bit of an approximation because there'll be setbacks, of course, right?
That's correct. So aerial imagery is not 100% accurate. It's an approximation. No part of the traveled part of the road allowance is to be disposed of. This is strictly boulevard and a little bit of sidewalk. We'd have to determine the exact locations with a formal survey.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Just to confirm that the property owners, they see this as a good solution to their inquiry, because I know they wanted a lot more.
Yeah, so based upon the constraints that we have with providing access to 3 areas, we have talked to the landowner and he is aware of this and in favor of this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, we have a proposed motion that reads report CAO 1725 regarding the stop up, close and convey Emberson, part of area street, Port Burwell be received for information. And that staff be directed to proceed with a stop up, close and conveyance of part of area street, Port Burwell to Mike and Kim Emberson in accordance with municipal policy. Mover and seconder. Councillor Emerson will move that. And Deputy Mayor Weiser will second. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Which brings us to report CAO 1825 by Thomas Thayer, CAO, regarding the sole source capital item number PW33 Lakeshore Line Study. Thomas, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Capital item PW33 is the Lakeshore Line Study with a budgeted amount in the 2025 capital budget of $35,000. So this was approved in principle at the November 13th, 2024 special budget meeting. Based on the above motion, we are looking to engage Shore Plan Engineering, for short, I'll call them Shore Plan, to provide this capital item to the municipality. The impetus of this is that Shore Plan has worked with the municipality since 2017. They worked with the municipality and the former IBI group in regards to the shoreline management plan, and erosion management plan that eventually resulted in bylaw number 2018-061, which closed Lake Shoreline between Clark Road and County Road 55 because of erosive processes. Since that time, we've received regular updated reports from Shore Plan, and specifically in 2022, 23, and 24, based on site visits and visual inspections. These were a smaller scale than the 2017-18 report. However, the erosion plan at the time, erosion management plan, identified that we should be doing a comprehensive review, larger scale study, and we're about at that point right now. Based upon the discussions with Shore Plan, they have quoted us $29,500 plus HST and disbursements on this file. And they would be looking at studying Lake Shoreline from approximately 100 meters east of what they've termed the South Otter Creek. So basically the Erie View Trailer Park to points east all the way to where the road dead ends just to the west of Godby Line, which is now no longer. So this update is intended to be very similar to the study that was done in 2017, 2018. The main objectives are included as site visits and photography of existing erosion conditions and review of existing background reports. So this will be looking at kind of the history of erosion in this area. Additional aerial mapping using drone-based technology to compile topographic data and determine the degree of erosion along this stretch, and then providing us with data analysis and a final report with recommendations. So within BAM's procurement policy, council does have the opportunity to sole source where it deems appropriate. And in this case, one of the goals is to make sure that when we're receiving a report like this, because it is very important to municipal infrastructure along Lake Shoreline and the road itself, we want to make sure that the results and recommendations are being considered consistently to what we would have been considering in 2017, 2018. And really the only way to do that is using the same contractor that is well-versed in not only coastal engineering, but erosive processes along the north shore of Lake Erie, including this particular area, and has been providing us with regular updates over the last few years. So given that, and the fact that the estimate falls well within the budgeted amount in the capital budget, we're recommending that council authorize a sole source for this particular capital item. And if that's the case, we'd have a report back in the summer and would be able to then budget accordingly for any necessary matters stemming from it for 2026 or late 25. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll leave it with you and council for any questions, but we're looking forward to moving this important study forward.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that, Councillor Emerson.
Through Mr. Mayor to CAO. The question isn't really for me to deal with the sole source thing. I'm in agreement with that. The question is, we know the foregone conclusion. Why do we need to do the study anyway?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, we don't entirely know what that conclusion is. The study along that entire section, I'm not a coastal engineer. I'm not going to put words in the mouth of, someone that's going to do the work for us. But ultimately, when it comes to understanding erosive processes and the impacts, it's good to have a third party unbiased view of it. And this allows us to get a professional on board that is not only well versed in those erosion processes, but has done work for us in the past, so we can interpret their recommendations the same way we would have interpreted it in 1718.
That I understand, but I do we need that to justify a road closure, or do we can, or to determine, because we know eventually we're gonna have to close the road anyway.
Having empirical data to justify any municipal decision is wise, and having a third party do that for us and give us their professional recommendations then helps us with any matters that might arise from that.
Was just maybe looking at saving the $30,000.
Yeah.
I understand that. and I thank you for that,
Fair
but,
Yeah.
yeah, I think an unbiased view, I think is a good way to put it.
Right.
Yeah,
So expensive.
It's just
it is
like,
expensive.
I know, but I mean, like, if we need it to justify a road closure, that's one thing, but if
Yeah.
if we don't need it to justify the road closure, then I don't see the point in spending the money, actually.
The other benefit to this too is that you've got a number of buildings on properties in the south side of Lake Shore Line that may become affected by erosion. And this provides us with information should we have to place unsafe orders into the building code on those properties too, which historically does occur in these situations. So it's not just the road allowance.
Okay, so that is justification I was looking for spending.
Okay, any other questions, concerns? Okay. We have a motion that reads report CAO 1825 regarding the sole source capital item number PW-33 Lakeshore Line study be received for information. And that council approve a sole source of capital item number PW-33 Lakeshore Line study to Shore Plan Engineering Limited, based on their total quoted amount of 29,500 plus HST and disbursements. Can I have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Emerson will move that. Councillor Chilcott will second. All in favor? And that's carried. Brings us to section 14, the bylaws. 6 of them. Bylaw number 2025-021, being a provisional bylaw to provide for drainage works in the municipality of Bayham in the county of Elgin, known as the Bartley Drain. Bylaw number 2025-022, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement between the Corporation Municipality of Bayham and 552976 Ontario Limited for the provision and supply of dust control. Bylaw number 2025-023, being a bylaw to stop up, close, and convey part of 4th Street in the municipality of Bayham in the county of Elgin, designated as Part 1 on Registered Plan 11R-11305. Bylaw number Z800 2025, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z456 2003 as amended, fair. Bylaw number Z801 2025, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z456 2003 as amended, 1830567 Ontario Inc. Bylaw number Z802 2025, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z456 2003 as amended, would. So this is going to be broken up a little bit here. I need a mover and seconder for the following. First, I will ask, are there any concerns with these bylaws? Questions? Okay. The first one is that bylaw number bylaw number 2025-021 be given a first and second reading. That's the drainage one. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Emerson, Deputy Mayor Weiser. All in favor? And that bylaw number 2025-022, 2025-023, Z800 2025, Z801 2025, and Z802 2025 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Weisler, Counselor Emerson. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. I don't believe we have any unfinished business. We do have other business. We're gonna pass the motion to go in camera and then we're gonna take a short break. Motion that council do now rise to enter into an in-camera session at 8:35 PM to discuss a confidential item regarding the sale or disposition of land, residential lands. Can I have a mover and seconder? Got Deputy Mayor Weiser and Counselor Chilcott. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. 8:35. We're gonna take a quick recess.